these days.
The the last time I came to Dallas was October of 23 for an investigator meeting on
Correct.
a study that we still have and got to visit and uh I love Dallas. It's an amazing place and there's a lot of investigator meetings there, so there's probably gonna be other opportunity to meet and connect. But Dr. Bugara, everyone, he's on the podcast. This is a PI and a physician and the owner of Epic Medical Research, which 8 locations. So, can you tell us a little bit about the setup you have as the Epic Medical Research, the site, and kind of how you started that one?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, nice to meet you, and hello, listener. I'm gonna start out a little back prior to going on Epic Medical Research, but just become before PI, I started my career in clinical research as a coordinator. Um, it
Mm.
was a funny story. Came to States in '07 after completing med school in India, as I was preparing for board exams, trying to learn English, both the reading, speaking, and at the end of the day, communication where people can understand. That was a big thing. And stumbled upon an ad on a newspaper saying obesity trial, where I was waiting at the bus stop going for volunteer work at UNC and Duke in North Carolina. I said, look, I'll take my chance. I don't know what that means, but I'll call. I called and they say, hey, yeah, what can I help you with? I said, by no means I qualify for your study. However, I'm a foreign medical graduate. Wanted to learn a little bit. I'll do volunteer work. Give me a good recommendation letter that I'm a good guy that could help me in residency. Uh, Strange enough, I was called upon for to meeting next day. I went in and I was hired on the spot to become a coordinator.
Wow.
So my journey started day after. So 2 days after the call, I am considering myself as a research coordinator that I had no clue about what that really meant back then. Because back in India, we didn't have much to do with clinical trials during med school, besides reading here and there about the data and the p-value and all good stuff. But yeah, so journey started as a coordinator. While I started for probably about 6 months, I worked on two studies, the obesity and a vaccine. It was a
What
flu
year was
vaccine,
this? What?
2008.
Wow. I mean, we're
And
doing obesity studies now, but 2008 there was not that many, so that's
yes,
interesting situation.
correct. Right. So it was fun to start and learn a lot about industry. Lucky enough, got residency same year, so moved on to do residency. And right towards the end of residency, I get a congratulations messages from colleagues and say the ones you worked on both got approved. And one became Belvic, the weight loss medicine. Didn't do well commercially, but
Yeah.
it was approved. And the second became a GSK vaccine called Fluarix. Now, when I got it,
Wow.
I said, thank you. I didn't really mean like, okay, somebody says, yeah, I got approved. What does that really mean? Really nothing. My day goes on. Let me finish the residency. And after a few weeks, I realized, wait, am I gonna be the prescriber now for these medicines or a vaccine? Short answer was yes. Like, okay, you know what? Maybe I want to get back in a clinical trial again because the impact was way bigger than taking care of patient panel that was like maybe 1,500 to 2,000 patients. So decided to get back in a clinical trial in 2012, 2013 timeframe as a independent contracted PI and a sub-I, and help the local research center to develop a new site and start bringing in primary care trials as they were doing psych and pain here in Dallas. In 2015, decided to open my own without knowing anything about the business side of the trial or the setting up a research center or location. And I asked for my previous employer for help. And we did the collaboration.
Hmm.
And that ended in 2020 when I sold portion of my site to them and opened Epic Medical Research within that few months while in a mixed up pandemic. Whereas a practicing physician getting multiple calls, I got COVID or my mom got COVID. What do we do? Back then, we used to say, pray and drink plenty of liquid, stay hydrated, and get shortness of breath, go to ER and pray for the best. Um, and that's when we landed a trial for COVID. And since then, we have not stopped. So, yes, Epic has 8 locations, two in the making of it. So, we'll likely have 10 locations probably in the next month.
Hmm.
We do multiple therapeutic indications. Our biggest one is definitely primary care, but we do neuro, GI, pain, cardio, rheumatology, dermatology, podiatry, ophthalmology, to name a few.
And so I'm imagining you started with a one site and expanded. Did you start in Dallas or is that where you are now?
Yeah, so south part of Dallas, a town called Red Oak, is where we started. Our flagship location now is in DeSoto, Texas. So it's again a south side of Dallas.
South side of Dallas. Uh, and what made you want to expand? Like, there's a lot of physicians that decide to do research and it never grows beyond their capabilities, right? I mean, Chris and I have clients in our network. Some of them are like you. They have a lot of sites they've expanded, but a lot of them, it's a lot easier to just, I'm going to do studies for me. I'm a dermatologist. I'm going to do derm studies. What made you see the potential in expanding and employing doctors, right? Or contracting? How does that work for your site?
Yeah, so one thing is, backstory goes as growing up, none of my parents or generations before me ever knew how to work for somebody else.
Wow.
So that carried on. And as I employed myself after residency, it was very hard to stay employed when you have tons of ideas flying in your mind and you bring it up to your employer and they say, yeah, you know what, great idea, but thank you very much, we're not interested doing anything. So it was got to the point where in 2016 when I left employment world, I left it for good. And always it's look, if I know how to do it, why can't I do it more? And that mentality carried on. So yes, we set up one site. On my other side of the stories, I used to own plenty of clinics back then, and I still own plenty of clinics. I have total 12 clinics my own that I own, employed physicians.
Hmm.
And as we bring in any of our clinic is a good fit for diversity, demographic or geographic location wise, research now or close to be now population or a lot of underserved population in the clinical trials. And we have to be seeing more than 50 patients a day in that clinic to think about putting a clinical trial in it. And of course, have dedicated space. So we're not fighting for the exam rooms or anything. So now we have employed physicians
Hmm.
for the practices and the providers like nurse practitioner or PAs. So then we think about, okay, let's expand clinical trial within our footprint of organic databases. So that's how so all of our employed physicians at some point will become independent contractor for our trial business.
At
And
some point, will. So what's the incentive for them? Is it you're teaching them essentially how to be entrepreneur?
teaching them the 2 3 different things. So healthcare economics is a big thing because primary care physician practicing or employed forever, they don't know so much about value-based care, what that means, what's a capitated rate. This is again a primary care side of the business where it's heading, Medicare, Medicare Advantage. So healthcare economics, how it works, why do you feel like I make a lot of money? But in short, it's not that much. It's the overhead and all those things. You take it out on the clinic side, it's not super profitable. So then the
Like,
other side
can you
is,
break it down, maybe healthcare economics from a business perspective for, let's say, internal medicine physicians? So I know in my community, they're getting bought out, they're getting like squeezed because the large health systems in town are driving their costs down for them, or the revenues down and the cost up. Can you explain, like, just introduce the problem maybe for 1 minute and then a couple of solutions that you've discovered might work? I'm assuming research is one of them because I found that one too for our community.
Right. So first off, biggest issues in healthcare on a primary care side, or some of those practices similar to primary care, is one, the patient load, it stayed the same or more. In terms of now, we have a lot more demand from the patient compared to, oh, I went to see my doctor, he gave me a prescription, we're good to go. But then turn around and say, by the way, I need refill, I need my paperwork to be done for FMLA or disability or whatnot. Those things don't get paid by anybody, and patients don't like to pay $50 or $100 out of pocket. Second thing is,
Mm.
so 10, 15 minutes of doc's time go in there. Second thing, it's the EMR, electronic data, right? That takes tons of time for physicians to, put the entry. And again, those are only for to please insurance companies to get paid. And third, more and more value-based care or the quality metrics came to play. It's not about just seeing patients, about, hey, did you have this done for these patients? If not, document, do it, all those things. There's no payment for it. So what happens is independent doctor gets tired because now he has to employ two medical assistants to see the same exact patient he used to do back in 2010 or prior. And two, the role to churn rate for these medical assistants and front desk is huge now. After post COVID, it's
Huge.
been crazy. So this guy is struggling every single day to make a living while trying to take care of the best of the patients, but still
Mm.
somewhat he's failing either to please the patient, please to the insurance companies to say you are a good doctor, and third, please himself financially because now he's taking less than he could get employed. And in the
Yeah.
healthcare systems, their big goal is to really, employ a physician and get more referral out of them. It's not necessarily to increase their revenue, it's to get the referral out of it for their ortho or anybody where
Mm.
they have a lot more benefit of surgery benefits in a hospital. So what I do, so I buy similar practices. I go by, struggling physician practice. Say, look, why don't you make exactly what you make today coming on board with us? Let us do other things. So we bring in a little bit high end technology platform where a lot of things could be done from patient to the node directly without anybody getting involved. So duplication of work gets avoided. Second,
What do you guys use eClinical Works or what do you use?
so eClinical Works is our software, yes. So
Uh,
then in the back end, we plug in some other softwares to take on. So for example, you as a patient go into doctor office right now, you pay filling out all the paperwork. You hand it over to the front desk, and nobody really cares at the end, believe it or not. I'm sorry, but on this call everybody like, what, really? Yeah, nobody looks at those, right? It gets scanned in a system, you go
right.
back in the room, the medical assistant will come and ask you exactly every single thing you just filled out 10 minutes ago. It's a redundancy,
Hmm.
right? And so instead, how can I do something where you fill it out and you actually the one putting everything in e-clinical work in a live time? And that's the software we put together. So a lot of those things is redundancy get away,
So the
and all the
software
data is very clear.
you have a software that like you built on top of eClinical Works, is that?
So we're right now more into ownership side of the level of the software, but at some point we were more into really using it as one of the vendor.
I see.
And the second thing we started doing is giving a top-notch physician who wants to do more a scribe, either physical scribe or remote scribe. Or these guys are either foreign medical graduates or the US medical graduates. We're not doing a pre-med students. So these guys are thinking quite well like a physician. So it'll take them 2, 3 weeks to see how this doc prescribes medicine for X disease. What's the next step could look like? Hey, there are quality metrics these insurance companies asking for. Let me knock them out before even doc gets there. So a lot of those back end stuff get taken care of. The doc
Mm.
enjoys taking care of patients. And now either we can see 2 or 3 more patients, but at the end of the day, the burnout rate is significantly lower. Not that I can say all of my physicians are super happy all the time, but at least we do everything we can because I've been through them personally. So increasing efficiency is the key. Now, when they get a little bit more freedom, they have a little bit more to think. That's when we bring in clinical trials and say, hey, is this a good, do you think you want to eventually at some point transition out? When you're
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm done with the practicing medicine, it's too much.
It's amazing.
Everyday changing landscape in healthcare. I want to transition out rather than retire completely. Hey, let's just plug you in for 2, 3 days of research and maybe a couple 3 days enjoying practicing medicine. And at some point, they just become like me, become 100% trial physician. So I switched over to that right around 3.5 years ago.
Wow. But you still manage the practice. And it looks like the practices are not just efficient businesses on their own, but drivers for the research,
That is correct.
obviously.
Now we have organic databases. So
Mhm.
we don't have to rely on any study. We don't take studies on if we don't see those patients in a clinic just to say, let's just go on a social media, spend $5,000 and get the patients. That's the last thing we have on our mind.
Yeah.
It's we have our own patients, we have our own databases. Maximize that first before we even go towards the social media.
I I'm glad you explained the business of especially primary care. My original PI is a primary care physician. He's actually a pretty big one in town. There's about 10 providers working underneath him at 2 locations. I think he's a fairly good businessman, and he did have some time for research, which, I mean, it's amazing the value unlock with just free up an hour of your day every day, Doc.
Mhm.
Give me an hour of your day that you could make $1 million business out of that. Like with just one PI. They didn't believe me until I showed them, like, yeah, we do the work. Like we're coordinator. We need an hour of your a day, like sign labs, come talk to a patient. Right now we're dealing with AE of special interest, so it's taking a little more of his time, but like the money is there, and it's incredible how if you just these guys, like you said, these guys and gals, they're getting so burnt out, they don't have time to even use the bathroom, let alone think about research. So you do need someone like you to come in and figure out how to make improve the process. I'm not seeing the same struggle with specialists. I don't know if that's because their reimbursements are a lot higher and the workload is less significant. For example, I go into my pulmonologist office, same size office, but like 1/10 of the staff, and like everyone looks more relaxed. What is
It-
the
it-
reason behind this?
so so when insurance companies looks at the quality metrics, they go to the doorkeeper.
Mm,
And doorkeeper is a physician, the primary care doctor, because if you get into any insurance, for example, let's say United Medicare Advantage, United is banking on you to give them all the metrics, the quality metrics, not on a pulmonologist, not on dermatologist, not on a GI or orthopedic. They
mm.
actually ask you to testify, sorry, a test diagnosis that was given by pulmonologist
Wow.
because those physicians are absolutely we call fee for service based means you see patient get paid. On a primary care side, it's a lot more on the quality side as well, because if physicians are primary care doc is not doing all the metrics, at some point United will put them at a 1 star or 2 star. So they will be looking they will look like idiots when somebody's searching for a primary care doctor in the area. I'm not talking about Google reviews. I'm talking about the United, their
Yeah.
own internal review system. So if you call United today and says, I'm looking for a doctor in my area, here is my address or zip code, they will say, oh, by the way, we have a five-star physician, five-star quality physician. Then we have a, you say, I want Dr. XYZ. Oh, you know what? We'll love to give you, but Dr. XYZ has a star rating of 2 or 1. Would you still want to see him? And you, as a patient, say, why would I go see a physician who's a 1 star, right?
But it has
It's not
nothing to
that
do with
physician is
their,
not right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Physician is awesome. He takes care of you just like more than anybody else
It might
would.
be better. It
But it's
might be
just very
better.
unfortunate that
A lot of
the
the,
burden is out there.
yeah, a lot of those times, those 1 or 2 star rating, they spend more time taking care of the patient and less time on the quality insurance stuff. So it's paradoxically better than the other one because they
And
patient focused.
right, and it's not about the quality of the care. It's
Hmm.
about documenting that you
Wow.
did it. So it's not like the doctor is not ordering hemoglobin A1C for diabetic patient. He knows what he's doing. But somewhere in the insurance world, the system does not recognize that he has ordered A1C.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he has to tell them that I did A1C and here is the result.
So it's you called it the quality of the metrics or quality of
It's
the
the quality of care. So quality metrics, that's what they use
qual
it, but it's also called HEDIS. It's the quality metrics in a way.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like it's not a good idea to be a primary care medicine doctor right now.
I mean, it's fun. I've done it. I have personally worked and developed. So I used to
Yeah,
run
but you're
10
all
clinics
research
in
now.
Dallas. Yeah, I used to run 10 clinics and I was doing research always on a side
Hmm.
until 2021 when I swift gear and like, look, impact is huge. I'm
Hmm.
talking about millions of people across the globe. And we have seen live hand, right? So when you're doing a research, something gets approved. It's a lot more than taking care of those 1,500 to 2,000 patients in a clinic that you have.
I want to
That's the
ask
impact.
you, I want to ask you before we get into how you manage your research sites, because I'm actually curious, what tools you use, how that works, employee onboarding, retention, all that stuff that I love. Uh, in your case, as far as being a community clinician, first, right? Because that's like kind of the foundation. What do you think the future holds for like, do you think more practices just get bought out by large health systems? Or what, how do you think this movie ends?
Yeah, so answer is yes. Short answer is yes. More and more practices will be bought out, or flip side of it is more and more doctors will never try to open a practice.
See, I think that, how do you feel about this?
Very sad in
Me
a
too.
way.
Me too.
But at the end of the day, if doctor is working hard and at the end of the day gets compensated well enough that he feels better about what he did for the patient care,
Hmm.
it's a win-win. But it's very hard in this environment right now, just because the consolidation in all kind of industries are happening crazy big.
But you know what's
Post
sad
COVID
about this?
has fueled up very big time.
What's sad about this is you're missing the doc. You're gonna eventually drive out and disincentivize. It's already happening. The physicians that are unorthodox, that are not dictated by payer says do this and only that. And well, that doesn't work for this patient. I'm gonna do like you're losing, you're taking away autonomy from these physicians, and you're basically giving the reins of patient outcomes to bureaucracies that could care less about your outcomes as a person. Like they rather you just be a cheap patient or a profitable patient than a healthy one.
Very true. And I think again, at the end of the day, latest data that I read, 78% of physicians are actually getting employed now.
And coming out of med school, man, this was not even recently. This is 2015, back when I was still in Orange County. I was looking for a new psychiatrist for one of my sites, and there was no prayer. Kaiser Permanente's hiring them out of medical school, $400,000 salary. No chance, no chance I could ever compete with that.
Yeah, so as an independent guy, we put as many incentives we could put together that we could afford financially.
Hmm.
And then the second thing, we say, look, what if I replace, or what I do icing on a cake and add you on a 1099 to research and pay you through that as well on top of your salary.
Hmm.
The workload is same Monday to Friday, 8 to 5, pretty much. So it's in the same space. So we're not asking them to do more than what they do. I would rather have them see one or two less patients on the clinic side
Yeah.
and help develop a research, because that's where the impact is. So the margin, typically financially, margin on a research is definitely a lot better than margin on primary care.
I'm running a 71% profit margin right now. I just did it 2 days ago. 71%. And I guarantee you can't get that in the traditional private practice internal medicine. You know what else is crazy about this? Research, especially in underserved communities, we are discovering uh, diagnosis in our patients from outside of our PI's private practice. Like we do run ads, so we get a lot of patients from outside of the practice. They go untreated with all kinds of things for years, decades, until we run a full panel on them and we're like, wait a minute, like what is this? How come there's no history of cirrhosis of the liver? Like this is, I mean, these are real things we're finding. We're
Yep.
finding like lipase 5 times the upper limit of normal. Nobody ever looked at this. This is
Yep.
crazy.
Because healthcare is expensive, right? Especially the people don't know so much about, or they are more an underserved population. Either the issues access to care, or if you have a smaller community and then most of the physicians don't take your insurance, you're very limited to options to go see somebody. So then they go to the emergency room or urgent care for a quick visit for my abdominal pain. Well, it's a chronic pancreatitis because your lipase is 5 times higher, whatever it could be. But
Yeah.
they went to emergency room for abdominal pain, and they're like, oh, there's some swelling on your pancreas. Didn't really reflect on a chronic pancreatitis type of thing. This is every so often the bout comes in, they get on a liquid diet, and the pain goes away, life moves on. And then, as you said, at some point, somebody's really going to sit down and do all the labs and say, whoa,
Wait
what
a
in the world
minute.
is going on?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We just ordered a CT scan of the liver, of the abdomen, everything, MRI. This person
yep,
never had anything. We're finding all these things about. And this is
right.
not
And
the
then
first time it's
suddenly,
happening.
correct, suddenly they say, oh, yeah, I've been to emergency room a few times in the past with this pain. They never told me anything. Well, they told you inflammation of your pancreas, but it didn't really relate to pancreatitis back then, or whatever it could be, or a duct blockage, a stone in the duct, or whatever it could be. But yeah, so we run some free campaign, more like, come get your check for diabetes, liver disease, things like that. It doesn't cost us a huge, because we're also, at some point, at some of our locations, we're also a clinic. And even within research with the local labs, we have a very heavy discounted lab pricing.
Hmm.
So doing the free liver and diabetic check, we're talking about electrolytes, liver, kidney disease, all those things, and electrolytes. It's cost us $8, right? Come get
Yeah.
it for free.
Yeah.
And we discovered a lot of A1C's been crazy high or never been diagnosed with diabetes, but at least they can say, oh, you know what? Now I have something going on in my life.
Yeah.
We advise them. We say, look, you want to be seen, treated by our physician, we'll be happy to, but if not, here are your reports. go find a doctor, take care of yourself.
Yeah. Or here's a study we have now, and
Yeah, correct. But
that's
most of the studies you want like, oh, stable diagnosis for 3 months or 6 months. They gotta be all
right,
stable
right,
medicines. We just
right,
discovered somebody with new diabetes. It would be very hard not to treat them,
right.
right? Because it would be against the ethics of not treating them,
Hmm.
just to be in a study for XYZ. But then you treat them, then they disqualify automatically from the study. So
True, true. Usually what I find is not newly diagnosed things
true.
like diabetes, but newly diagnosed like finding like a liver abnormality or cirrhosis that nobody looked into. In those cases, if you have those kind of studies, you actually can put them in. But
Yeah, we
uh,
do we do five we do have fibro scans. So, a
okay.
lot of times we do like fatty liver check, come get fatty liver check, and then as they have it, at least the awareness in the community is there. We'll say, hey, by the way, your hepatitis is high, the percentage is crazy high. Would you
Mm.
consider, liver study? Like, oh yeah, yeah, we'd love to. What that requires? Oh, liver biopsy. Like, yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I'll give it a try until then.
Yeah, yeah. But let's switch. Thank you for the rundown of the state of the healthcare industry in general. I mean, we're actually seeing parallels in research. You were saying the private practices are getting acquired by the large hospital systems essentially to be a referral source to the higher margin specialty procedures or treatments. Research is also getting acquired. Small sites are getting looked at by larger site networks. I think the two go hand in hand. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think a lot of people, like you and I, maybe discovered on a small scale, like economic efficiencies and economies of scale for doing this. I think they're trying to copy it on a larger scale. Venture capital is behind this, private equity, maybe the same people behind buying the private practices, honestly. What are your thoughts on research sites being acquired? And do you think that is the same as private practice, or do you think that requires a completely different skill set?
So there are two things on the research side. You require a lot more support system than a private practice. Private practice is 100% dependent on that physician or a provider. But a research, they don't have to be the smartest guy to do clinical research. They gotta be a lot more open to learn and available, right? So because your coordinators, your QA or QC personnel, your budget and contracts or controller are the key people, but mainly coordinators. So if you give them a good, solid, good, trained coordinators, they're golden, right? Doing a physical exam is the easiest thing any physician can ever do. And
Right.
especially when it comes down to you're not treating a patient, you're advising them if you see something. But most of the studies, you may not be dealing with a chronically ill patients. So their workload is significantly lower and their grasp of clinical trial could go very fast if the coordinators are actually guiding them and say what that really means in the long run. So, they may have to remember your special interest or some of the very basics things that
Lab cheat
got to make
sheets.
sure.
A lot of lab cheat sheets. I made lab cheat sheets for my PIs, like, because there's so many different if this then that, and he asked me,
Correct.
make me a cheat sheet. I can't remember all this stuff, so I gave
Okay.
it to him. It's all 3 times upper limit, do this, 2 times, do this, different kind of things like that.
Yeah, so I think, in terms of the consolidation on industry, primary care consolidation is happening to a lot more get bigger on a value-based care. More the lives you have, Medicare, Medicare Advantage, particularly lives means patients, then your risk profile when they take a risk with Medicare or Medicare Advantage health plan, I'm talking about private equity or myself even, right? The pool is so big enough. If 10 patients get the open heart surgery or valve replacement or a knee replacement, it spreads across. So the dilution is significantly higher. So the cost of care is not that bad, if that makes sense. So out
It's
of pocket,
subsidizing it. Those big
correct. So
things,
if
big tickets are subsidizing everything else.
right, so if I have 100 patients and I take full risk that hey, I'm at risk for this patient's care, give me all the money or revenue, 80% typically, give it to me and I'll take care of these patients. And two cabbage came in or five cabbage came in, two cancer, you're done. You're actually emptying your pockets out for those 100 patients,
Mm.
right? So instead of 100, now you have 10,000 or 100,000 patient volume. Those things doesn't matter as much. It does matter, but it doesn't matter as much. So every hospitalization you prevent, you're saving 11 to 12 grand on an average, right? On the primary care side.
On the
Right,
primary
so
care.
there is a reason to do huge consolidation on a primary care wall
Mm.
for taking a risk.
Especially for
in,
the
in
health systems, right? The ones that own the hospitals too.
Health system don't care, health system don't like it actually,
Oh, okay.
because it is against their own. It's just like shooting themselves on the foot
Oh yeah,
if
sorry,
they go
payers,
in.
the payers.
Payer and Medicare directly, right? Because health system, they can't say, oh, we want you to reduce the hospitalization,
Yeah, yeah.
right? We want you to increase it,
Right.
right? On a payer and a CMS or a patient's or a physician's benefit is to decrease the hospitalization to get a better care for a patient,
Hmm.
right? On a flip side to research, it's economy of scale a lot more rather than a dilution of the cost of care, right? So
Sure.
here, you're just now you're able to bring in a people to improve the process across the board. In our case, we have 3 states, right? So we have to make sure that systems are set up in a way, the checks and balances have been set in a way where we'll actually be able to look at their work in a real time
Who
or
does,
be available in a real time.
what do you guys use for the eSource or eReg? Do you use anything like
So
this?
we use eClin Pro.
Ecolin Pro, okay. I've heard a lot of people lately. I'm Team
So
Creo, but I think if I wasn't, I would be Ecolin Pro, Team Ecolin Pro
yes,
too.
we've been through Creo in a beginning phase, but it was so new to us at that point. We were
Hmm.
very busy.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say Creo is bad. However, it left a bad impression to us that there's so much to do and learn that we didn't have time to pause and spend
Yeah.
months or weeks over it on meetings to understand how to build templates and how to build all those things.
And they're still releasing new. Now we have this thing. My coordinator played with it yesterday, actually. You click a button. Maybe it's less valuable for you because your patients come from your own practice, but for us, we do a good amount of advertising, and you click a button after they sign the consent, and you get their records in your eSource, like from any provider in 100-mile radius.
So it's HIE, Health Information
Yep,
Exchange.
yep, yep,
So they're tapping the data from the high level, from a CMS or Medicare, and saying, look, we have the reason for this data to be available for better care for the patient.
yep.
That's the only way you can get HIE,
Right,
right?
right.
It's
Yeah.
it's it's to you got to prove that this is gonna help the patient.
And they partner with
Or
one of the biggest companies to do that. I think it's Pluto. I want to say
Pluto,
it's
yeah.
Pluto. But
So on the
okay, so
eClean Pro
Eclin
side,
Pro.
we were a very early adopter, and not bragging so much, but we learned so much over the time. I and eClean Pro can easily go on a text message and fix something very quickly. So they made so many improvement after we joined them last year. It's been exactly a year. We taught them so much what we need as a site network, and the guy is so graciously
Who is he?
accepting
What's
all the
his
fact.
name? The
Rainier,
founder? That's right. We talked to him too, and he
Yeah, he
came
was at
out.
the SOS.
Yeah, yeah. Were you at SOS?
I wasn't. I was not able to go.
Oh,
So
I
I
was
I
gonna
had
say, yeah,
my
okay.
I had one of my representative came,
Who? I
uh,
didn't meet.
David
Maybe I met.
David David Tulohi.
He should have came up. That was a whirlwind of a day or two for us, but
So
looking
I
forward
bought the
to.
ticket, right? I and
Thank you,
Brad goes back and forth every so often. We chit chat, and pass on some ideas. Brad Hightower.
Brad. Shout
And
out, yeah, shout out to Brad.
right, so I got the ticket, but then I could make it. So I had somebody, let's say, look, you gotta go.
Well,
This is
next year it's
this
in
this is the
Oklahoma
future.
City. It's in Oklahoma City. You guys have
Yeah, I
to
have
come.
no reason not to go
You're
because it's
all your
a
staff. How many
right.
staff do you have for
So
research?
we are at 48 now.
48, including all your PIs and all this.
PI is not included. So PIs are all
Wow.
independent
So
contractor
just support staff.
support stuff, the coordinators and QA and QC and a lot of
Well,
good
this
stuff.
is a huge organization. What do you do? Like, how many studies do you do a year, would you say?
On an average, we do about 65 to 70 studies.
That's huge. I mean, we're like at 12 to 15, maybe 20 if we're like we have a chance this year, but probably more likely next year we'll hit
Yeah,
20.
but I think in our case we have about 9 different PIs or
Yeah.
specialties, so
Yeah.
it works in our favor that we are able to tap into some of the trials that
That's right. We do have
maybe one
five.
or two trials, like dermatology, for example. We have 3 trials. It's not
Yeah.
10
It's
in
not
his case.
huge.
So
Yeah, I have a dermat. We have five. Well, we have six PIs, but five specialists, five different specialists. And yeah, you're right. Like derm, sometimes it's you only getting one or two studies per specialist, and other time, and it fluctuates. Like I've noticed, psych is always busy. My psychiatrist, no problem getting him studies. The derm, the cardio, that fluctuates. Primary care, it's usually stable. Pulmonology right now is really good. And then unfortunately, we don't have a GI because the large health system owns all of them in town. So
so there are very handful GIs in the United States are independent
damn it. How do you do it?
because
You have
so
independent.
we have one independent in Dallas.
Hey, you better
And
treat that person really good.
right, so the way we started was that guy was very big on research during academic years, and he said, I can't work for anybody.
Mm,
That guy works more than anybody else that I can ever meet.
mm,
And so we were getting initially started doing some GI studies where we need scopes from him. And so he started doing it. And I said, hey, any interest? He said, do you see any time that I have? And I said, not necessarily, but what if I start putting you as a sub-I of some GI trials and access your database? And he said, I'm all in. So we have a
mm.
full-time sub-I for him if there is any particular GI study. So he doesn't have to take a ton of a load and
Right.
and and make a big break in his schedule to see those patients. So
And he
so
may
a lot of our
own,
work we do with supporting sub-I, strong sub-I. So we have a full-time sub-Is as a provider, as a practitioner
yeah.
or a PA.
I have one like that too. Shout out to Jaime Valles. He's actually, as we're talking, texting the group thread about some AE of special interest. But these nurse practitioners, these mid-levels, like my advice to anyone starting a site, it may be worth getting an NP as some equity because Jaime has unlocked my ability to do podcasts. And I mean, I wouldn't do these things if it wasn't for a partner doing these things with me, like especially on the clinical side. So I could focus more on the operations. Now, operation wise, so you treat every site, I'm guessing has like a site director or a lead CRC, or how does the structure work for you as far as your sites? Do they interact with each other or are they independent? Can you kind of just give an overview of how this works?
Yeah, so we don't have too many cooks in a kitchen, and so there's less power struggle. And so that way you can easily manage a lot of folks, because when the power struggle happen, it's real and it's devastating sometimes. But regardless, so we have all of our sites will have a lead CRC, and they are connected to centralized to everybody at just a text message away. So we use Teams for our communication.
Okay.
Constant communication is happening with Teams. And as we have a study that spreads across 2 or 3 locations, and as we screen, or any location screens the first subject, they will put the entire stuff out there on Teams. What are the difficulties they find? What are the things that should other sites should start looking at it before they even thinking about screening anyone?
Mm,
All the accesses. This is where the stuff was XYZ. So there's a very open communication, and some of the difficult trial, complex trial that needs a lot more detail oriented stuff. One of our coordinator will be staying on Zoom or Teams meeting with the other site to just walk them through step by step, or even get
wow.
on a call and talk to the subject and say, this is what you should expect.
I
Now I'm going to
see.
have them take over and carry on.
Wow. So you're
And
basically doing like what the CRO should be doing. Well, because that first screening, that first randomization is always nerve-wracking, right? And you would like
especially
someone to hold
complex
your hand.
studies. And when
Yeah.
it comes down to a lot more stratifications, that's when we have our one CRC who has done the first work. And then a second thing we do right away is, after the first monitoring visit, doesn't matter which site got the first monitoring visit, any feedback we get from the monitor, we take it at the company level and implement immediate changes in a source documents or data collections or anything we need to do. So we 2.0 comes out very quickly after the first
Mhm.
monitoring visit
Mhm.
on our source documents.
How do you how do you manage? Do you have like one or do you keep do your coordinators do like regulatory as well, or do you streamline that with a
So
standardized reg?
less regulatory. We train them. We want them to do some, but when it comes down to submission, to maintaining the continuation review, to all those things, we don't expect them to know all of them,
Mm,
or at least know them, but not necessarily be spending so much time out there.
yeah.
But we have seen some of our coordinators that, it started with us as a coordinator, like, I'm a lot more interested into regulatory. We give them a partial role towards that, and as we phase them out from a CRC role to go towards the regulatory.
Mm-hmm.
We're
That
very
would
open. We're very open. I mean,
that makes
if they
sense.
said I have a lot more interest in recruitment because I can generate this sales speech way better than a lot of others can. Heck, there's no reason for you to be a coordinator at that point.
Right.
Let me just move you towards the recruitment at that point.
It makes sense. Like the my theory is you need to provide them the opportunity to do what they want, or they're gonna find what they want to do somewhere else without
or
you.
or or they'll do it, but it's when they do it, I would consider a work versus job, right? So job is whether they like it or not, you do it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Work is where you really gotta enjoy it. So at the end of the day, the satisfaction brings us a lot more positivity in environment, as well as the overall
Yeah.
positivity in organization.
Yeah. I like this when it's all said and done, this might be the biggest site I've created. And I don't know how many staff we're gonna end up having, but right now it's 7 and not counting the PIs. So if you count them, it's like 12 or no, 13. Uh 14 if you count the HR and people. I mean, it starts adding up quickly. The point is, and I've talked to Brad about this a lot, and Brad doesn't have an answer either. I'm not sure I do also. I don't know how big I would enjoy having my site because I don't think I would enjoy managing a site or an organization as large as yours. I like to go one on one with everyone, right? And you lose that at a certain point. There comes an inflection point where you don't really know your staff anymore, right? And you're relying on other people to do that retention for you. How does that work for you? And what is your day-to-day role in this whole thing?
So as of today, I can speak. I don't know about a year or two from now, but as of today, every single employee gets hired in an organization have to meet with me. Um, Either
Like
the
by
first
Zoom
round of
or in
the
person or
Zoom or in person, depends on where they are. And then so first round goes to some of our key people who knows been doing research forever and know me, what I look for. We'll go through, and then a second I go through, and I said, look, either you believe in or you don't believe in. There's nothing in between here. You're not a medical assistant. Let me go try it out to see if I like the patient care or not. This is research. You gotta believe in the big cause, or why are we doing it? What is the impact in the community or the national globally? So if you're not passionate about it, where you can go to Walmart or Target and you're in a cashier line, and you can't talk about what you do, I don't think this may be the right fit. And I got to make sure you're proud of what you do, and this is the one thing that you will be absolutely proud of what you do, compared to, you can say, oh, I'm a medical assistant. You're not just a coordinator now. You're a
right,
coordinator that is making something come live. Could it be a therapy? Could it be something we find out along the way genetically, whatever it could be?
right,
So so that is still intact in our organization. Now, again, I don't know how that would be in the next year or two.
right.
Second thing is, I'm 80% dedicated to research, and I'm 20% dedicated to clinics. I
Okay.
have entire operations on a clinic. Well, as you mentioned, do I know every staff member? Answer is no, because I'm not involved there day to
Mm-hmm.
day, but I know every single provider that we bring on. I'm very heavy involved there. So we have about 137 employees on the clinic side,
Wow.
across 3 states. So that I can guarantee that I don't know everybody. And on this side, I know every single personnel that we bring on clinical trial. Now, my day to day is a lot of about what kind of protocols, what are the difficulties we see on a protocol. Let's just bring people together, talk about common things that we've been missing out, or common things we can improve on, or hey, we have this thing coming up, or new protocol coming up. Let's just put a quick protocol review together, maybe training together, especially from a PI standpoint. What are the key factors that you guys should be looking over? You can't just brush it off and move on, because you will get stuck during the real trial happens. Still do a lot of meetings with our marketing, our recruitment department very closely. Our QC, QA people are continues to find the reason, and we have hired um, offline some of these CRAs from larger CROs to do our QC.
Remote, remote
Yeah,
QC.
remote or in person, so they can come if they're local to Dallas. They'll come one day a week
Ah, okay. So your
and
sites are in
say
Dallas. You said 3 states, so I'm guessing Texas, Oklahoma, and what other one?
Arizona.
Arizona. Oh, where
Yeah,
in
we're
Arizona?
your neighbor.
In
So
Yuma?
closest to you is Kingman.
Ah, so on the way towards Vegas, on Nevada. Um,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
we're the last
that's like two,
last
3 hours
glorified.
out.
I always call that location because we have a huge clinic there. I always call them like you're the last glorified truck stop. Before nothing happens until Henderson.
Seriously, that's way out there. That's like even further out than Havasu. Havasu,
So Havasu is a lot internal. It's not connected to the main highways. So we have a clinic in Lake Havasu as well.
is that I've always wondered if that's, I mean, I'm guessing it's a big enough community to do
It
research in.
is it is about 55,000 people.
Okay. So it's like half
Kingman
of
is about
Yuma.
yeah, Kingman is about half of but I think about 32,000 people. But the Kingman surrounding of Kingman, there's not much going on until east you see Flagstaff.
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
just not so much around there. So these communities need a lot more. So Kingman became kind of a hub
Yeah.
for their big healthcare beside Flagstaff or down south a little bit. You're looking at Prescott.
Prescott, yeah, but Prescott's more affluent. There would be different challenges there for recruitment. We're in like a great spot, between here and the Mexican border, there's still room to expand.
So we had
Um,
a clinic there when I bought the organization.
in San Luis or
Um,
where?
no, in Yuma.
In Yuma.
Uh, yeah, but decided not to get it up and running because it was a little too far for day-to-day operations for anybody to go out there,
Oh
and so
man.
decided not to get it up and running as big. So we just shut it down very quickly after I bought the practices.
Oh, it was part of a group
So we
of
were we were still paying the lease until October
Wow.
2023.
Man, you should have reached out to me.
Uh, I didn't want to just say, "Hey, take over my lease."
Who can you say who it was or no? You rather say it
So
off camera.
More MD was the organization I bought.
I don't think I know them.
Yeah, More MD, MORE,
Okay. Private
Space
primary
MD.
care?
Yeah, yeah, primary. Yeah,
Yeah, no. I
we
wouldn't.
weren't doing research there by any means, but when I bought them,
I
it was
see, I
it was
see.
one location was there.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good area. I mean, being here, I often wonder because I come from a very crowded market, Orange County, LA. I'm probably gonna go back to San Diego, which is another crowded market. I always try to think of like other spots in the country that would be similar to Yuma. I do think Kingman is one, Havasu. There's got to be pockets that we just don't know of. You have to be very local to those areas that would be gold mines for
Yes.
research.
So I mean, Kingman, for example, there's nobody knows clinical trials in that area.
Of course not. Yeah.
There's nothing. And we've been approached by some specialists that look, we're interested. Let's do it together. So the
Interesting.
challenge is what we notice in some of these smaller towns when you and I can, and even sponsors know we need new blood in research, right?
Yep.
Because at the
Yep.
end of the day, the global data says only 5% people in United States have been participating in a clinical trial. And we're
Do you
talking about,
want do you want me to read you something interesting? I just came
please.
up with this. This is gonna make everything real. I'm gonna try to not I'm not gonna mention the sponsor, obviously. It's a study I'm working on. Check this out, okay? This is a real email I got 2 days ago. I sent it to the Latinos and Clinical Research team. Dear investigators and coordinators, we welcome a strong focus on inclusion of diverse populations to ensure we can meet our FDA obligations for XYZ study. As a reminder, and as previously communicated from the early stages of preparation, we have a commitment to the FDA for our program via the blah, blah, blah. This is the study. At the moment, our projections show that we have fallen short in enrolling patients with diverse backgrounds. In order to fulfill our diversity plan requirement to the FDA, we will implement a ratio below for enrollment spots of patients of diverse background, Hispanic or Latino. Any participant that is in screening can continue to randomize. However, from now on, we will be going 3 Hispanic for every one other race ethnicity. We anticipate this to be temporary to support our diversity targets. I mean, I've never seen an email like this in my life, but they're basically saying we can't put other races right now. We need Latino, and we're gonna lock your IRT until we think it's fine to unlock it. I mean, this is real stuff, guys.
And the problem, I was at SCRS Include in Atlanta and talking about, when we're asking, more and more PIs are dropping off clinical research. New PIs are not coming on board because it's too much. And two is when PIs are interested, a physician interested to become a PI or a sub-I, we take their CV to sponsor or CROs and like, oh yeah, but that's great, but we don't see an experience here.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we can't. Well, then how are you going to get the diversity
Right.
in a clinical research? These guys are holding thousands of patients of Latino, for example, in your case, right? But you don't want to choose him because he doesn't have experience. And
Well,
and and same thing happens in Kingman, for example, right? Smaller town, right?
but Dr.
Just
Bugara, that's where someone like you or me go in, take the risk, put the trailblazers down, get the study however we can, and then it's no longer a problem going forward.
I'm
That's
doing it, right? So
that's what it
that's what
takes.
we do,
Yeah.
right? That's what we
Yeah.
do is where we see the diversity is very high in our patient population. That's the only place we open a center because opening a clinical trial site is a piece of cake, right?
Right.
Because it's what is it required? Really nothing.
Nothing.
It's not a huge real estate.
You don't
It's not
even
a
need a
huge
coordinator. You
equipment,
can
right?
do it yourself.
Right. To start with there, right? The
Yeah.
coordinator only comes in when you really start getting going and getting a study. But
Right.
like, oh, Epic Medical Research have 50 locations in 1 year. Yes, I can do it. It cost me what, 15, 20 grand to set the whole thing up. Two exam table, three exam table, couple
Not
of
even. Nah,
centrifuges,
I don't know
minus
where you're
20,
buying the
minus 80,
stuff
good to
at.
go.
No
Right.
way, man. Way
So,
less.
but the problem happens is how sponsors look at it.
Yeah.
And so I was suggesting them, why don't you just every style you're doing or every trial you're looking at it, if 100 sites you're looking at, why don't you give 10% sites or 10% brand new sites or brand new PIs in those, bring them in, make them a good PIs in the long run because they're red hot PI. They're interested. They're all pumped up about research talk and all those things and a financial incentives at the end, right? And then wait for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, no study comes in. Those guys are done. They have zero interest now.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
what I think we're lacking in a clinical trial industry as a whole. Like, look at those guys who are super interested. Give them a try.
Do you
We're not
think
saying
consult?
pick 50 of your sites out of 100 brand new. Pick
Yeah.
10.
But you know what? I think this is my theory. The consolidation, and my site may or may not be exploring options right now, but the consolidation, I think if the acquirers and are not thoughtful about this, they're just gonna grow for the sake of growing and not grow in areas that are important for growth, right? They just grow for the sake of pleasing their investors. And when you get emails like this, let me tell you, this won't be the last time I get this email. This is a
Agree. This is the
monumental,
beginning.
this is
This is
the
the beginning.
beginning. That's why it's a monumental email for me. Like, this is gonna be the norm going forward.
Very true. And again, going back to those facts, is like 5% people only have been exposed to clinical trials in the
Hmm.
US. What happens to the 95% of people? And second thing, this 5% people, including all the trials that have done to date. So,
Including majority of AMCs, academic
so
medical
that
centers.
tells you typically 90% of the patients, or 80 to 90%, I'm just guessing, will be the same patients that doing
Yeah,
trials forever,
yeah.
right? What are we bringing new to the market? There's no
Recycling.
genetic variation. It's the same genetics. It's the same
Yeah.
biomarkers. You're looking at it. So, new blood is, I call them new blood, right? We need new blood in research, both as a PI, more as a coordinators, but definitely as a patients at the end of the day.
So,
Everything, we all exist because of one thing. It's patients
so looking
or
looking for
volunteers in research.
projecting forward. I mean, this could be a 3-hour podcast, but thank you for your time, by the way. Uh, well, one more question before this next one. The tracking invoices, receivable, CTM. I'm assuming eClin Pro has a CTMS?
Yes.
Okay. Do you do that or someone does this full time for you?
So we have full time for that.
Okay, so you're not like sending invoices and things like this.
No, but I used to at one point, but
That's
I
me.
am, I am, I am absolutely on the budgets and the contracts.
Chris does our budgets.
There's
Thank
no
God.
budget goes without me in it. Just because I can put the perspective what that could look like. It's not just the fibroscan; it's the
Right.
time commitment, all those things.
Right,
So,
right, right.
so a lot of those things get put to perspective on a physician standpoint.
On my end, thank God for Chris Sauber. If you guys need help, DSCS, swag reinvestment. I don't even look at the budgets until after they're signed to know what I need to invoice for and things like that. But now I take over that part because I don't think I need a full-time person to invoice yet. Although we keep growing like we are, maybe I'll promote someone from within. But okay, so just wanted to ask about that. Last thing before we just schedule a part two. This whole diversity initiative, like this consolidation of sites, do you actually think that's going to do anything for diversity? Or do you think this is an experiment that is going to turn into like SMOs, how it was in the late 90s, and then it ultimately go back to mom and pop research centers?
So same thing happening in the healthcare side, right?
Yeah,
So all those ACO and managed care organization came in, then became a PPO, and then again trying to get towards the same concept HMO. On the research side of the industry, I say this is not the play for including the diversity or increase the diversity in the clinical trials. This is play to say, how can I grow my dollar into $1.50 very quickly, right? What's a return on investment look like? However, along the way, it will impact secondarily to the population, to some of the demographics or geographic locations where some of this big funded or deep pocket private equity will say, look, let's just set up a site in New Orleans or Alexandria, Louisiana, where we see a huge diverse patient population. Worst case scenario, we may not be successful, but at least we have something to show to the sponsor that we have those sites. And two, if you get successful, heck, we get kudos to take those initiatives. So this consolidation is nothing to increase the super diverse patient population,
mm,
right? I say it's a lot more goes back to the sponsors and CROs to say, how can we please the sponsor, or our sponsor could look at how can we look at our own diversity data and says, we have the maps of the United States, we have the map, entire map. Why don't we go look for sites in that specific area first before we start bringing the big organization and say, oh, you got 40 sites. Let me give you this study at 18 that we feel like, because we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. But it's been hard. Like we are in south part of Dallas. Before all this diversity movement started, our enrollment is typically 60% African American,
wow.
roughly about 20 to 30% Hispanic. We're very good with Asian as well, being some of the contexts we have. And we have Caucasian, nothing wrong with that, but this is the town. But we don't get looked at like that at some point. We get looked at as, oh, there is a site in Texas.
Yeah. Or another
Just like,
site
and
in
then,
Dallas.
yeah, other side in Dallas, because there are plenty of them otherwise.
Yeah. Hmm.
So diversity, it's not new to us. We've been doing it, but it's been recognized now since FDA is mandating more than ever before.
Yeah.
So again,
Doctor,
going back to consolidation doesn't change a whole lot about the prevalence or availability of research in a smaller communities. Yes, some of these, the DCT has changed some of the models and all, but again, that's the
eh.
whole another talk one of these days.
Yeah, to me that's nonsense. I mean, DCT is a
That-
tool. It's a tool. It's not a paradigm shift, you know.
you probably need good genetic data from the communities. DCT could come in handy, but that's it.
Yeah, it's a tool. Like it's a
Yeah,
layer. It's not the solution itself. It's a tool to help maybe work on the solution.
yeah.
And that seems to be have quieted down a lot. Uh, But yeah, don't get me started with that one, Dr. Bugara. But I think DCT is you in Kingman and me and Yuma. Like that's real DCT if we really want
True,
to
but
get
we
down
don't get looked at like that. That's very unfortunate in the
Yep,
research world.
yep, yep.
Like this guy is putting the site out there, taking all the risk. There got to be some reward and say, look, maybe it's worthwhile to explore Kingman.
Yeah,
Look, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? I mean,
yeah,
I'm sitting on the top of the organization. We have all the processes and
yeah.
such together. There's no reason for this trial to fail unless we don't do crazy enrollment.
You know
What we
what
say
though?
we
Like
have.
we are, I mean, the industry still is very meritocratic. Like you do get rewarded for the effort you put in. If you're doing it in the right places and you know how to do the things the right way. There's this whole subsector of the industry that likes to complain. I think that the entrepreneurs do get like I don't think I would still be here doing this if we weren't getting rewarded, and I think you as well. So, you know, there's this cohort that just like to complain and hear themselves talk, but are not doing anything. And then there's the ones doing it, and if you do it and you do it the right way, you will get rewarded. I mean, that still is possible in our industry. Thank God.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is going back to like base. Like, are we gonna go back to the independent research locations and the centers? And answer is always yes. There will be a lot more entrepreneurs will get tired of employment work or be part of the bigger organization, bureaucrats or bureaucracy of that, and power struggle. They'll
Hmm.
go back and open their own. And
Yeah.
I see in the last few years, I see a lot more CRAs
Hmm.
are interested opening their own sites.
Me too. Good luck with that. Call me, DSCS. We help you. A lot of our clients are CRAs, and some of them do well, some of them don't, just like everyone else.
Yep,
Uh,
very
Dr.
true.
Bughar, we got to do more of these, man. And if I can get you to Oklahoma for 2025, we'll do a one-on-one in person there.
I'll be there.
All
Yeah, I
right.
have no I have no reason not to be there.
Of course. It would be a pleasure to have you there, and we'll definitely have to do more of these, even by via Zoom. Maybe we'll go live one of these days. But it's a super inspirational story, and it's amazing actually what you've done and the size of your organization, and uh, even on the clinical side. I mean, you can have a whole podcast just on the private practice, not research. We can just talk
True.
like an hour about that or more. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're gonna be hearing more from you on the show,
Oh,
and everybody go connect. His LinkedIn is underneath or on the show notes if you're listening. Thank you very much.
thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.